Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm happy to see that everyone who invested through this recent stock market crash is starting to see their reward. Stocks are rising and another market correction looks to be increasingly unlikely. Well done, you did it. Now that things are settling down in the markets, I thought it would be a good idea to take a look at a few subscriber portfolios, giving my thoughts and opinions on them. Please bear in mind that these are exclusively my opinions and criticisms of the portfolios in question, and do not necessarily mean it would be a bad investment. What stocks you invest in can depend on so many factors such as age, attitudes to risk, and sometimes simply how much money you actually have to invest. I also ask that you give your opinion in the comments section. Would you invest in this portfolio, or do you see some outstanding flaws? This portfolio belongs to Matthew. He says, "Hey, would you mind taking a look at my portfolio for dividend growth? I'm a bit worried as I'm quite US stock oriented and the Borussia Dortmund one is a bit sentimental. Impressed with the YouTube videos you put out." First of all, I would just like to say thank you for those kind words, Matthew. It's really great to see that I am adding value to the investing community. To answer your question, I wouldn't be too worried about a large portion of your stock portfolio being exposed to America. It makes sense to hold a large portion of wealth in the US, as historically it has been the best performing market for economic growth, and should continue to be for the foreseeable future. Personally, over 65% of my portfolio is domiciled in the USA, so take it from me, my money's on the US. On your Borussia Dortmund comment, I think it's okay to have some satellite stocks, or just for fun stocks. Putting a small percentage into less reliable stocks is fine so long as you don't get carried away. I've taken the liberty of adding some of Matthew's main stocks into a spreadsheet. I will only go over the main and largest holdings in this portfolio, as the smaller ones are more satellite stocks, which brings me to my first point. As you can see, there seems to be a large number of stocks in this portfolio, with some having a very small amount invested. I usually try and keep my stock count to a minimum, and never exceeding 20. I think it can get quite difficult to stay updated on large stocks portfolios, and you may miss the key information about each stock. Looking at this portfolio in a spreadsheet, we can see it has an average weighted dividend yield of 3.66%. What this tells us is that he is not chasing dividend yields, and instead investing in high quality blue chip stocks, banking on the dividend increases to shoot his yield on cost through the roof. This is the preferred method to shoveling money into risky high yield stocks such as mortgage REITs, as these companies often hit financial trouble, rely on interest rates, and rely on the cyclical economy. Looking at his industry allocation, we can see that over 42% of his portfolio is in consumer staples. Now this is something I would look to reduce, and maybe add some consumer discretionary, which has more room for growth, companies like Disney, Netflix, etc. Despite the large focus on staples though, he has a large portion of his portfolio in Apple, which I believe has room for further growth, and is in the tech sector, a classic 10-bagger industry. This is something I like to see. Looking at his individual holdings, the first up is 3M. The 3M company is an American multinational conglomerate corporation operating in the fields of industry, worker safety, US healthcare, and consumer goods. They have paid dividends to shareholders without interruption for more than 100 years, making them a double dividend king, and increased the annual dividend consecutively for 61 of those years. They also have a 5-year dividend compound annual growth rate of 10.6%. These are among some of the best dividend stats you will find for a modern company. Room for growth looks fairly minimal, but 3M is a stable dividend stock, and it's a thumbs up from me. We can see he only has a fraction of a share currently, which will drip $1 a year, but I can only assume he will build this position over time. I would just like to take a second to ask, if you find this video helpful, please consider clicking the like button. It really helps me get the world of investing out to more people, and shows me what content you prefer. Thank you. Next up is one of my favourites, Apple. Apple is the tech stock to own currently, and has an astounding 5-year dividend CAGR of 10.49%. Growth has also been exponential. I would have advised waiting for a drop in Apple's share price. They've sharply risen almost 60% over the last 3 months. but honestly, I don't think they'll drop much more from their current highs. We can see he has around 25% of his portfolio in Apple. Maybe a bit steep and doesn't leave much room for diversification, but I doubt Apple will run into trouble anytime soon, so I'm giving it a pass. Altria is one I'd never even heard of before this submission, but from the looks of it, it seems to be a cigarette company of the likes of Imperial Brands. I always think stocks for tobacco and alcohol tend to be pretty stable and pay high dividends, but in an ever-growing market of regulations and red tape, struggles will surely arise. Companies like these will be on the way out, that is unless they invest in other developing technologies such as e-cigarettes, etc. I would only hold one stock of this type in my portfolio, but I suppose you could treat these companies as one holding and have them less weighted. Next on the list is AT&T. AT&T is a US-based telecoms company and the second largest provider of mobile services and the largest provider of fixed telephone services in the US. They operate as a carrier of both fixed mobile networks in the US but also offer telecoms services elsewhere. AT&T has a lot of debt currently. This would typically be a deal breaker when their competitors such as Verizon have a fraction of the liabilities. But recently, new management has been aggressively paying down debt and I think AT&T has more upside than Verizon if things work out. The dividend has been growing for the past 35 years consecutively, making them a dividend aristocrat. However, it might be worth noting that they have a poor 5-year dividend CAGR of just 2.09%. I've avoided investing in AT&T so far, but it's one I'd be considering if I didn't have the stocks I want already. One of my favourites is up next, PepsiCo. PepsiCo needs no introduction. They own brands like Lipton, Quaker, and of course Pepsi. I realise some would argue Coca-Cola is the better consumer beverage business to invest in, but I don't see it that way. Coca-Cola has been extremely overvalued for some time now. Not that Pepsi isn't, but the margin of safety is better. In addition, Coca-Cola doesn't seem to be as well diversified as Pepsi. 48 consecutive years of growth puts this stock with the best dividend payers in the world. A 5-year dividend CAGR of 8.41 ices the cake. Caterpillar, or CAT, is the world's leading manufacturer of construction and mining equipment, diesel and natural gas engines, industrial turbines, and diesel-electric locomotives. It's been the leader in its field for almost a century and been a stable dividend payer. The PE ratio of 83.67% isn't ideal, and additionally, there isn't much room for growth as they are already a worldwide company. I personally would not invest in them, but that's not to say you shouldn't. I'll leave it up to you if you want to look into them further. Now, I did a video on Realtor Income a few weeks back explaining why the company is just so great. I would advise you to watch it if you are interested in the stock. It's a monthly dividend paying, triple net lease commercial REIT, which is a solid rock for any portfolio to sit on. Great pick, Matthew. Imperial Brands is another cigarette company similar to Altria. They recently cut their dividend, which was previously yielding 12%. This is unfortunate, but if I had to pick between Altria and Imperial, it would be Imperial for a few reasons. Mainly because I know more about Imperial Brands and know what I would be investing in. And also because the 15% dividend withholding tax doesn't apply to me because I'm a UK resident and buyer. The final company I'm going to cover out of his portfolio is one I'm sure we've all heard of, Unilever. Unilever owns tons of brands such as Magnum, PG and many more. Historically, they've been a great dividend payer and will likely continue to do so. The only slight issue I would bring up with this company is the minimal room for growth. They've already expanded into most countries, so acquiring new brands is really the only route. I used to hold Unilever, but I soon realised I wanted smaller cap companies. You may have heard the phrase, elephants don't gallop. Despite this, however, I still give this holding a thumbs up and it's a great company, just not for me. So what do you think? Would you invest in this portfolio? Leave your answers in the comments. I would not invest in this portfolio as there are so many multinational established giants that leave room for minimal growth. If I were older, say in my 40s and 50s, I would definitely invest in this portfolio as it would provide a more stable source of income with smaller share price fluctuations. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy the video, all I ask is that you please leave a like and consider subscribing. I've been focusing on quality over quantity lately, and these videos really do take a lot of time and effort to edit and script. If you haven't yet signed up to Trading 212, please do so with my link in the description. Deposit £1 and get a free share up to £100. It also gives me a free share which helps support the channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.